Hello everyone. In this chapter 2 we will be discussing about the data types in the JavaScript. So basically we have the primitive data types. Most common data types are something like number, boolean, string and undefined. So if any variable that is declared and if you don't assign any value to it, that can be called directly called as or will be defined as undefined. As you can see over here, it's undefined. And if you give some kind of value to it, and what are the value that is been assigned, we can see it over here. Now I want to see what is the data type of the x. So for that we simply do this one, type of, it is a method, so open the braces and inside it enclose the variable. Now you can see the type of the x, that is number. Now I'm going to assign a new value to x with string. Now let's see what happens over here. Now it is number, then it is string. So in this way you can check the data type of a particular variable. Now let's see, x equal to true, data type is boolean. Now let's see what happens if x equal to null. That is an object. That's it. That's one of the funny thing over here. Like undefined is still as a primitive data type, but when it comes to null, it is said to be as a data type of object. And what is an object, we will discuss it in pretty soon. So these are the things, the primitive data types, as you can see, number, boolean, string and undefined. And when you have like x equal to 5, now x equal to 5, now let's say let y equal to x. So I'm going to try to print console.x and console.y. I'm going to remove the top stuff just so you don't get confused with the print statements, and I'm going to give it as some let x. So now let x equal to 5 and y equal to x. I'm going to print those two, as you can see, 5 and 5. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the x value to something else. I'm going to change the x value to something else. See what happens. So it's 5, 5 and 7. X has been updated, but still the y value remains 5. Even though x has been updated, the y is with x, still the y will be shown with the old value. So that means if at certain point, if y has been assigned with certain variable and that variable value changes, it won't reflect the what are the value, it won't reflect any changes in the y. That is pretty much common in the primitive data types. Even if I change it to the storm, then also I will be seeing, oh, I'm going to close this one. It's a storm. So and y is still showing as a 5. That is important. Remember this point, like even if I change x value, y value will not be changed because x belongs to one of the primitive data type. Now in JavaScript we have one of the two non-primitive data types, arrays, objects. Okay, an array in other languages you might have stored is like a collection of primitive data types. Of course, you can even store non-primitive also. Basically it's a collection of primitive or non-primitive, and in most of the languages arrays store same data type elements in its collection. That means let, this is how an array is declared in JavaScript. Let arr1 equal to, open the square braces, and inside the square braces you can include the elements whatever you want. Let's say right now I want to include a set of numbers 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 comma 5. So this is an array which is a collection of numbers. Now if I try to print this one, console.log arr1, I can see it has all those values. Suppose I only want first element, or I only want the last element. How do you access that particular element in arrays? So arrays, you can access any element with its position, and remember that always position starts with 0. That means if it has 5 elements, the position starts with 0 and ends with 4. Okay, now like I said, if I want to access the first element, then it would be, once again open the square braces, keep it as a 0. That's it, 1. Now if I try to access fourth element, then it means 5. What if I keep beyond something 4? That is something undefined. So only those which have been assigned, we can access those. If anything beyond that index, this is nothing but the position is also called as index. So if anything beyond index, nothing but it's undefined. Now how can I add more elements to an array? So simply array1 dot push whatever the new element you want to push, like 6. And now I'm going to access the array number 5. We'll see what happens now. At first it was undefined. Now that I have pushed 6, now in the 5th position or the 6th element we have 6. So that's how we do it. Now how do I remove an element in array? That we can do using pop. Pop deletes the element which has been last inserted. So let's say this one. So now as you can see, it has only up to 5. It doesn't have any 6 over here because the last element is 6 we have pushed and the last element is popped. So that's how we insert the values into array, and we push the elements into array or the pop the elements. We can do a lot more methods. We have a lot more methods on arrays. We will discuss on a particular separate chapter about the arrays and the array methods. But for now, remember the basic things we do is we give the values, we push it and we pop it, and if we want to access particular element, we use it using square braces like this, or if you want the entire array, simply use. And if you have let's say I have x equal to 5, and you can even use this way in the square brace, instead of 5 keep it x. Now that x has 5, that means array1 of x is nothing but array1 of 5. Once again, as you can see, 6. That's how we declare and define the arrays, and we can access the elements of arrays. Now you might have wondered, like I said, like it is a collection of primitive data types and non-primitive data types, and stores the same data types in its collection in other languages. But in JavaScript you can push to have an array different data types. For example, I can even push string, or I can even push a boolean value. True. Now let's see what the array has. At first it has only numbers. Now that you see, it has 1 2 3 4 5, a string and a boolean value. If you want to check the data type of array, if it is array or not, type of arr1 it should be an object. Yes, you are confused, I know. Instead of an array, it is showing an object. All the non-primitive these type of data types will be shown as object. Now how do you check whether it is an array or not? That is a funny thing, that I will show in the array methods, not over here. So if you want to know about that one, you need to wait for another video where I will show entire all the methods available in array. Now let's discuss about the objects. Object is another one of the non-primitive data type. Over object, we declare it as with let obj1 be the name, and we start it with flower braces and end it with flower braces. Now over here an object, it is a collection of key and values. Object is collection of key and values. Key should be something unique. That means an object can have multiple keys and values combination, but at the same time the key should be unique, and the value can be not necessarily a value, can be of any data type. That means a value can be even another object. Okay, you got that? So value can be of any data type. That means a particular key can have value as a number, boolean, string, undefined, arrays, and even another object. Okay, that's how. So the basic, let's do with the basic example. Let's object one, and it has a basic key as, let's say, name. And as you can see, you can and you cannot, you can, and if you want you can even declare it as in double quotes, or if you don't want you can even avoid that one. Key doesn't make any difference, but for the value, always if it is a string, go with the string name. And if you have one more key, insert the comma, go to the next line, let's say place USA, and now let's say age, I'm not gonna say my age and age 99. Yep. And now let's see weekdays. That's going to be array, let's say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. As you can see, every key has a value. It can be even a number also. Let's give it as a number. It can be number, and I'm going to keep another data type. Let's say what is it? Yep, is student false. Okay, that's how I'm checking whether is student or not false. Now I can even insert, like I said, an object can have a key with a value as another object. Let's do that one. The best one is address. Okay, address is having another object. So once again flower braces. So let's say with city New York, country USA, zip can be a number, let's say 4 5 blah, blah, blah. So as you can see, an object have a key with a string value, number value, an array, a boolean value, and an object and a key with another object. Now how do we access these things? Object values can be accessed using object one, the name itself, dot the key name. What is the key name? Let's say I want the name. You can access in this way, or the best way is just like the arrays, give the object name, open the flower braces and close it. Inside, as a string, give the key name. Okay, that is the best practice as of now. Why? Because sometimes what happens is, like, I have another variable which stores a particular key. Let's say I have x as name, and I want to have the value of a object with whatever the x has. So that means I can do it as x. But if I try to do it in this way, it will look for a key with key as x instead of the name. So it's always good practice to with show as object of X or object of name. Now let's see what happens if I try to do the console log. Which is 1 of X. I'm going to remove this one. That's it. Now I got the Lohith. Let's say object of week case. Now what happens is like this will be having the entire array like that. Now if I want address, wait a minute, yeah, see, I should be enclosing it in double quotes. So I got the entire object over here. So that way we can access the elements of an object using this way, like in the square brackets. Now I said that like address have one more, it is an object. Now I want to access country value. How can I do that? Once again, continue with one more square brace with saying country. So that means you are going deep into the another object. So this is like a one object, and that object has country as a key. So that's why I opened a square brace and closing brace, and inside as a string I have included as a country. Now we can even have a numeric keys, like for example 1 as John, 2 as Mickey. I can even do that. So now let's see. So in this case, since it is a number, I can directly put the number John. Let's see what happens if it has kept string. Still you can access it. Since it is a number, you can even use directly call it as a number, or you can even call it as a string. Okay, that's how we use objects and strings. Objects keys as a strings, or directly as per the data type whatever the key is. Now earlier I was saying like if I change value of X and it doesn't make any difference to the Y, even though Y is assigned to X. But when it comes to arrays and objects, that doesn't work like that, because arrays and objects are stored by reference, or call by reference. I would say that would be the best one, call by reference. That means let's say I have a simple array like X equal to 1 comma 2 comma 3. Now let Y equal to X. Okay, I'm doing the same way. Now I'm trying to print console.log of X. Y. Let's print those two arrays. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new element to X. Let's go with 4. Now let's see what happens with what changes happens to X and Y. As you can see, even though I have pushed 4 only to the X, still that has been reflected in Y also. That means whenever I store an array into X and assign it to Y, Y is actually not storing the value of X. Since it's a non-primitive, Y is actually storing the reference or location of X. So if I make any change to X, automatically applies to Y. So like for example, if I change 46 also, like I say, So no matter wherever I change, so but if I try to do, yeah, like, nah, nothing like this. I would say like, yeah, even let's do the pop. Actually, let's do the push of one more element, and let's do the pop also, just so see what actually happening. Now x and y has 1 2 5. See, earlier it says 1 2 3 1 2 4 5. See, whatever the changes happening to x, it also applies to the y. The same things applies to the objects also. So let's say, let's object 2 equal to object 1. Okay, now let's modify the value of object 1 name. Actually, name earlier we have it as Lohith. Now I want to change it as Arnold. Okay, now let's print the name of object 2. So as you can see, even the name of the object 2 has been modified. Before it was Lohith, now it is Arnold. So whatever the changes happens to the object 1 automatically applies to the object 2. Now you might be getting confused, like, hey, I don't want whatever the changes happen to the object 1 not to be reflected to object 2. In that scenario, what you should be doing is, instead of just assigning object 1 to object 2, you should be doing it as a process called cloning. So how we do that for the array and for our objects, we will discuss that in methods of the arrays and objects in another chapter. So remember that if you directly assign an object or array to another object or array, those are called by the reference, not directly by the value. So any changes you make to the object 1 automatically applies to object 2. If you don't want to do that, you should be cloning the object 1 into object 2. That we will discuss in future. And yeah, let's see what happens. Console.log of, once again, type of obj1, that would be an object. As you can see, it's object. Now one special concept we have called sets. For example, let array 1 equal to 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 and 5 comma 5. As you can see, it has 2 5s. That means it has duplicate element in it. So arrays allow duplicate values. As you can see, 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 and 5 and 5. But if I want an array kind of similar data type, but I don't want any duplicates to be allowed, in such scenario we use concept called sets. Let set 1, we should be declaring it as new set. Okay, if you are familiar with Java, this is kind of a pretty similar notation. If you are pretty new to this, understand that unlike other data types, we declare it as new set. So unlike arrays, we try to do it as array1 dot push some new element. But in set, what we do is dot add, not push. So 1. In JavaScript, if you don't even include the semicolon also, not a problem. And I can print console.log of set1. That gives me the elements of the set. As you can see, it is showing in a set manner. Now let's add another 4. See what happens. So I have 5 elements have been added, yet it shows only 4. Set will not allow duplicate values. Set, let's see what happens when I try to do it. Let's include array1 as one of the new element into the set. Now as you can see, set has 1 2 3 4 an array. Now let's do it another one. See, it still works. Now let's do it in this way, like the testing the earlier concepts. So what's happening is, like, if it is something primitive, it just simply checks if there are any other primitive elements with the same value. If it is something an array non-primitive, that means like this reference and this reference are both are same. So basically it checks whether by based on the reference or not, and as you can see they both are same. Now let's see what happens if this way, and instead of array 1 I'm doing array 3 but the same values, but now it is in different reference. Since an array is non-primitive, set will check only by reference if there are any duplicates. So only by array 1 there is only one duplicate. Array 3, even though values are same, since array are non-primitive, it checks with reference. But since array 3 is a fresh array or new array, its references will be different compared to this reference. So that's why it has allowed duplicate. So sets will not allow duplicates if it's a primitive based on the value, if it's a non-primitive based on the references. That's how we use the sets concept. Thank you so much, and please do subscribe, share and comment, and if you have anything interesting to share, please do comment on it. Thank you so much.